Welcome to the Albuquerque Journal Midweek Blitz High School Football Show with your hosts, James Yodice and Geoff Grammer. This show is sponsored by Western New Mexico University.
Hi, everyone. I am James Yodice. I am the high school sports editor here at the Albuquerque Journal. Welcome to the Midweek Blitz, our weekly podcast on high school athletics, most specifically high school football. We're going to talk about a few different things today. I am flying solo today. Geoff Grammer has been with me for the first few weeks, just sort of helping me along. Geoff is actually here in the room and just sort of monitoring, but I'm going to handle things by myself today. So we're gonna talk a bit about last week's prep football slate. We're going to talk a little bit about games upcoming this weekend. We'll talk about a couple of other things as well. I should mention, this week we're going to see an unusual amount of bye weeks in prep football for some of the top teams. Artesia, Roswell, Cleveland, La Cueva, quite a few others are all off this week. So our slate of games is a little bit watered down this week. We'll get to that toward the end of the show. But many of these teams were in action last week, and we want to talk about that here at the start, Week 7. Starting with the Cleveland game against Volcano Vista. This is a matchup between number 1 Cleveland, number 4 Volcano Vista. Cleveland wins the game 35-12. Their big running back, Harris Boya, rushes for 249 yards and 3 scores in one of his best games of the year. Cleveland was coming into this game on a bit of a cold stretch. They had lost 2 in a row. They had lost 3 out of 4. They have been dinged up. They haven't been 100% physically. So this was a game for them to get back on track. And they did that in a big way against Volcano Vista, who's a very good team. And Cleveland got its running game going. Their defense was outstanding. They kept Volcano Vista's running back Elijah Gonzalez in check for the most part, except for a couple of big runs. They did a really good job against him. So this game, which I felt was probably going to determine the eventual District 1 6A champion in this district, should go a long way for Cleveland to securing the district title down the road. They still have to deal with Rio Rancho at the end of the year and probably the number 1 seed, of course. As I said, Harris Boya, who broke out in a big way in the state championship game last year against La Cueva, had a huge night. This kid is really a load to bring down. As I said, he rushed for almost 250 yards and multiple scores. I had a chance to visit with him at the end of the game, and why don't you take a listen at what he had to say.
So we're here with Harris Boya from Cleveland. Big night, almost 250 yards, multiple touchdowns. Let's talk about how important this win was, especially as a district opener.
This was very important. Coming out of the loss last week, we just had something to prove, show the state that we're here and we're coming for what's ours. Yeah.
Okay, so this team had dropped 2 in a row and had lost 3 out of 4. But did you guys still feel like everything was still okay if you came out and took care of business tonight?
Yes, absolutely. The plan is there. Everything's there. We just got to execute at the end of the day. That's what it was. And we kind of put it all together at the end.
So let's talk about the game plan. Obviously, they put the ball in your stomach a lot tonight. And I thought you kind of started to wear them down in the fourth quarter. I don't know if you felt that way.
Honestly,
especially on that last run.
I never really think about that, but this is what we do. They give me the ball. Wear them down, wear them out, we throw it. Wear them down, wear them out, we throw it. Everyone, it's just, I love it. I like it.
Tell me about that.
Running back from the state, baby.
Tell me about that last touchdown run. You broke a lot of tackles.
Oh my
that
God.
had to be really
I was just telling the line, hey, y'all got to give me one. Give me a big one. Boom, okay, I got it. Thank him. Thank you.
Were you looking forward to this matchup? You and Elijah, 2 of the best backs, maybe the 2 best running backs in 6A. Were you kind of looking forward to that part of it?
No, not really. I don't know. For us, it's just a game, and the next game, but we really have to do something in this game, and that's what we came out of here to do.
So real quick, this team has a bye week, as your coach said. You've had 7 really hard games. How much is this team looking forward to a little bit of a break?
A lot. It's good. It's good. We're happy for this bye week, honestly. Okay. Yeah, we're very grateful for this.
The other key game in the metro area on Friday was up at Wilson Stadium, La Cueva and El Dorado. La Cueva really put a hurting on El Dorado, 74-20. I believe La Cueva had 62 points at halftime in this game. Their junior quarterback, Cam Dyer, accounted for 9 touchdowns, 6 passing, 3 rushing. Just a huge night for Cameron. And La Cueva continues to heat up. They've won 4 in a row now. This was a District 2 6A opener there. La Cueva looks like they're playing some of its best football. And they put it to an El Dorado team that can score and can move it a bit. Their defense has been a struggle. But Cam had a big night. He is really starting to come into this position. He's had some rough patches, but he is starting to come into a comfort zone at the quarterback position, and like he's starting to get other kids involved, like Tanner Montano, who had a big night, the receiver for La Cueva, the sophomore sprinter, who is just a fantastic speed presence on the perimeter. So La Cueva off to a good start. They're off this week as well. The metro area lost its last undefeated team last weekend in Bernalillo. Bernalillo came in 6-0 against Los Alamos. Los Alamos scored on an 18-yard touchdown pass in the final minute, beat Bernalillo 26-19. So Bernalillo's win streak to start the season is over at 6. Not a real debit. Los Alamos was playing a lot of good football. They had lost the previous week to Albuquerque Academy, but this is not a terrible loss for Bernalillo, as disappointing as it might be. They'll have a chance to regroup now. I believe they're on their bye week too, before they jump into district against Bernalillo and Lovington and Academy. I wanted to talk about Sandia and West Mesa. That was, in my opinion, a key District 2 6A game. This was on Saturday. Sandia beat West Mesa 36-28 out at Community Stadium. Their quarterback, Cruz Rivera, threw a couple of touchdown passes in the last 2 minutes of the first half. A big momentum swing for Sandia, and then they came out and scored on the first drive of the third quarter, got a 20-point lead, and they needed to have most of that in the second half as West Mesa tried to stage a comeback. But that is a big win for Sandia. They did a pretty good job on Elijah Brodie, West Mesa's quarterback. They're a fantastic quarterback. They did a pretty good job containing him, getting out of the pocket for the most part. So Sandia turns around and plays El Dorado this week. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Education and training at Western New Mexico University is accessible from every corner of the land of enchantment, providing limitless opportunities towards success for more than a century. And now, through the New Mexico Opportunity Scholarship, tuition and fees are covered for anyone looking to start or start over. Along with free tuition, books are always included for every WNMU student, assuring your only worry is how far you can actually go. Lift off toward your future and endless potential at WNMU today.
Sandia gets off to a really good start. That's a win in that district. All wins below La Cueva between Farmington, Sandia, El Dorado, West Mesa. Any win head-to-head between those four is going to be gold down the road. So that's a nice win for Sandia. The last game I wanted to talk about real quick from the metro area last week was the Thursday night game between Albuquerque Academy, and St. Pius. Academy won this game 28-12. They won this game with one offensive touchdown. They punted 9 times. They had a total of 3 rushing yards and 6 first downs, which is a crazy thing. Their defense had 2 pick sixes. They had a special teams score as well. So Academy's defense has been fantastic. They went up to Los Alamos the previous week and held Los Alamos to 6, which was a really great showing as they handed Los Alamos its first loss. So Academy's defense looks really good. They're going to have the same issues Bernalillo has going forward. They got to play Portales. They got to play Lovington. 2 teams at the top of the food chain in Class 4A. I talked to Academy senior linebacker Brodie Whitaker after their win. Brodie is one of the really great linebackers in the metro area, one of the top 4 or 5 easily in any class. He's just a kid that plays with, as I said, a very revved up motor. So I had a chance to visit with Brodie after the game, and here's what he had to say.
We're visiting with Academy linebacker Brodie Whitaker. This defense with another really good performance. Tell me what the spark was tonight. 2 pick sixes, and you guys really dictated things most of the night.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. I mean, going into this game, we knew it was a big deal. Rivalry, historic rival. So we knew they were going to bring the energy. They scheduled us for their homecoming game, but ultimately we had the momentum. But even though it was sloppy, we brought it.
So what was the game plan? They have a lot of young guys at their skill positions. They were rotating in freshman quarterbacks. Did you guys feel like with a veteran defense, you guys had the edge tonight?
Yes, sir. I mean, with our box, our D-line, our inside linebackers, we're ultimately the veterans on the team. Our secondary is brand new as well. So if we going into the game, our game plan was if we could stop the run, then we'll stop the pass. And that's basically what we did.
You tell me what characterizes this defense, what makes it so good?
You know, the communication and the brotherhood that we have. I mean, all camp, all week, every day we see each other at school. That's the great thing about a smaller school like Academy. I mean, we're always around each other. We build that brotherhood, so that's what brings us together to win games like this.
So you're 5-2 going into your bye week. When you come out of the bye, road trip to Portales, which might be the best team in 4A. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that a little bit. This is going to be a brutal district for all of you.
Right.
You, Bernalillo, Portales, Lovington.
Right.
Tell me what you need to get done over this 2 weeks leading to Portales.
You know, we got a couple days to rest up, but start fresh and early Monday. We're preparing for Portales. We're watching film. We're on the field. They're a big fish, and they're well coached. They're disciplined, but we'll bring it.
Okay, so we're moving along. A couple of the games I wanted to mention from last week. First, Roswell High School went up to Farmington and beat Piedra Vista 44-0. And maybe that doesn't sound like much on the surface, but Piedra Vista, despite a very subpar record, Piedra Vista is one of the 4 or 5 best teams in Class 5A. Roswell went up and beat them 44-0. Their defense forced 4 turnovers. This team has just been a juggernaut. They rolled through 5 consecutive 6A schools before they turned around and played Piedra Vista on the road. So Roswell is 7-0. Artesia is 7-0. And we're going to talk about them next week a little bit more, but Roswell and Artesia are now on a collision course officially for Friday the 13th at the Wool Bowl in Roswell, which is going to be exciting. But Roswell has been playing fantastic football. They have not given up, I don't believe, more than 1 touchdown a game after their first week this year. So we're talking about some 6A schools in there, plus Piedra Vista. So that Roswell defense has been fantastic virtually the entire way. And the other game I wanted to mention real quick was Rio Grande, which is a program that has had many struggles. Won its first game of the season last week. They beat Navajo Prep 54-8. It was a game that was just put together like 72 hours before they actually played it. Rio Grande had only had 9 games scheduled, so they found an opponent. Navajo Prep is a 3A school, and Rio Grande beat them. First win of the year, first win for new head coach Christopher Smalls. So congrats to Christopher and congrats to Rio Grande. That's a program I've said many times for public consumption. I'd love to see this program get back on track and start being more competitive and get back into an actual classification and an actual district so these kids have a chance maybe to qualify for playoffs down the road. Gadsden did something similar to this a couple of years ago, and it has worked out great for them when they dropped out of the largest class into the second largest class. That has been a real boon for them. So I hope sometime in the future we see that with Rio Grande as well. They have proven in short spurts that they can win in football. So maybe if they are allowed to play down in a classification starting next year, which is something that could happen, they're going to have a chance to do some damage. So moving along, let's get to our stars of the week. We had a few really good candidates, and I wanted to run them down real quick. I'll give you all the candidates that we have this week, and I'll give you the top couple of vote getters. And this is a list that I put together, and I always ask my coaches, stat keepers, parents, if you have a kid that you feel like is worthy of mention, please get his information to me at my Twitter address at James D. Yodice or at my email address, jyodice@abqjournal.com. Find me somehow, get me their stats, and we'll certainly look at it. So here are some of the nominees we have for this week. We mentioned Harris Boya from Cleveland, Cam Dyer, we mentioned from La Cueva with his 9 touchdowns, which is amazing. Tanner Montano, the sophomore receiver from La Cueva, he was the runner-up in the 100 and the 200-meter dashes as a freshman last spring to Bryce Melton of Santa Fe. Bryce had a big day. He only caught 4 balls in the win against El Dorado, but 3 of them were for touchdowns, and he had 155 receiving yards. For the first time this year, I nominated an actual unit. I put the Roswell defense on the list this week. I felt like the performance they put up against Piedra Vista was strong enough that it merited consideration. So I went a little bit outside the bubble with that, but I felt like it was worthy. This is, like I said, this has been a defense that has been fantastic. 4 turnovers on the road after a very long road trip up to Farmington. Joaquin Tafoya, the senior quarterback from Rio Grande, he combined for 5 touchdowns in Rio Grande's win over Navajo Prep. He had 2 rushing scores, 3 passing scores. So congrats to Joaquin, because this is a team that struggled to score. So it was nice to see them find the end zone a few times. And then our last candidate was Fabian Trujillo from Los Lunas. He caught 3 touchdown passes against Capital, a 57-7 win for the Tigers, and he also rushed for a score. So those are our 6. I'm just going to give you the top several percent, in terms of votes. So we've got Joaquin Tafoya from Rio Grande with 38.7% of the vote. Good for him. And we always ask our football communities to partake in our poll, which you can find at abqjournal.com. And schools can vote throughout the week, and then we name the winner at the end of the week on Friday night. Then we have Tanner Montano from La Cueva, who we just mentioned, at 26%. And then Fabian Trujillo at third, 17.4%. So, as I said, when this podcast drops sometime on Wednesday, if you hear it, get the word out. Fans, you can vote throughout the week on our top stars. It's something we just started to do this year. We're having some fun with it. I enjoy the recognition that we're able to give these kids, and I think the communities enjoy having a chance to get on and vote and just stuff the ballot box, as it were, for their kids. So we're really happy about that. Moving ahead, I wanted to talk briefly about some of the games that are coming up this weekend. As I mentioned at the start, a lot of New Mexico's best teams are off this week. Primarily that is because in the 5A and 4A divisions, those are only 14 districts, and they play a 3-week district schedule, weeks 9, 10, and 11. So many of them build the bye week into week 8. So this is why we're not seeing a large number of our top 4A and 5A teams on the field this week. As I say, Cleveland and La Cueva, it was just sort of a coincidence that their buys happened to come on the same week. But I want to talk first about District 2 6A. We have a couple of games coming up this week. West Mesa, coming off that loss to Sandia, is traveling to Farmington. That's a really good quarterback matchup between Elijah Brodie and Trell Griego from Farmington, who's a big kid, but more mobile than you might think if you were looking at him. He's built like an offensive tackle, but kid can throw the ball. He had one really horrible game against Rio Rancho, but for the most part, he's been pretty solid all season. So that is a really interesting matchup there. Farmington beat them down here 48-41 last year, so that'll be an interesting matchup. The other game in that district is at Wilson Stadium on Friday, which is Sandia against El Dorado. El Dorado's in a bad spot. They've got to find a way to win at least one game in this district. I don't know against who. It's not going to be against Farmington, I don't think. They've already lost a game to La Cueva. They're going to have to find a way to beat somebody. They're going to have to find a way to beat West Mesa, or they're going to have to find a way to beat Sandia. They're going to have to find a way to beat one of those two teams to stay out of the last place spot in that district. So El Dorado and Sandia play on Friday night. Sandia looking to kind of consolidate that win over West Mesa last week, and El Dorado looking to get its first win. That's a team that can move the ball, but their defense, they went to a 2-platoon system this year, which means you don't have kids going on both sides of the ball. And their defense has really been paying a price. This is the second time this year El Dorado's given up at least 70 points in a game. It's a young defense, and against the more experienced offenses, it's been an issue. The top 3A matchup this week is between St. Michael's and Robertson. That is a district game. That district, I think, as most prep football fans know, District 2 3A, which features Raton and West Las Vegas, Santa Fe Indian School as well, plus Robertson and St. Mike's. This is the best 3A football district in the state, and it consistently produces at least one state finalist most every year. St. Mike's is coming off a loss, however, on Sunday. That game was scheduled for Saturday. They had weather issues. They had to replay it on Sunday in a very rare instance of a Sunday prep game. So West Las Vegas came into Santa Fe, beat St. Mike's 7-6. So St. Mike's is already behind the 8 ball. Robertson, this will be their district opener. Robertson beat Dexter a week before last, pretty big, which was a great road win, kind of signaled that they were maybe back to the kind of form everybody thought they would have. Robertson is a team a lot of coaches told me they felt was going to be the best team in 3A. We'll see. This district is very punishing, so we're going to see how that pans out. And St. Mike's now, all of a sudden, they can't afford to start 0-2 in district play and hope to get a top 4 seed in the playoffs. So this becomes an urgent thing for St. Mike's as well. So that game is in Las Vegas at Robertson on Friday night. The game I think I'm most interested to watch is in Silver City, between Bloomfield and Silver City. This is a rematch of the Class 4A state final last November, which Bloomfield won 13-7 for their first state title, I think, since 1966. Silver really put it to Bloomfield last year. They played a neutral site game in Socorro. Bloomfield, if memory serves, had quite a few kids out, I believe, on COVID protocol. I might be wrong about that. They had an illness of some sort going through the team, and a lot of kids did not play in that game, and Silver really hammered them by like 5 touchdowns in the regular season. Then they played again in the state championship game, which Bloomfield won. This is such a fascinating matchup. You're talking about a Bloomfield offense that's been averaging about 50 points a week against a Silver defense that has just been completely fantastic. They gave up, I think, 14 points. I'm sorry, they gave up 36 points on opening night to Jeff Grammer's Alamogordo Tigers. I see Jeff here off camera. But they have been really stingy on defense since then. So this is going to be a really great X and O's matchup between a very high-scoring offense and an incredibly tough defense that Silver has. And Bloomfield's defense has been really good too. People haven't talked about that as much, but this Bloomfield defense can play a bit too. So that is really a fantastic matchup. Like I said, some of the other top schools are going to start returning to action next week, as we talked about. And we'll get into some of those games, and we'll talk more extensively about Artesia and Roswell next week, who play at the Wool Bowl in Roswell. Those teams are ranked number 1 and number 2 in 5A, and who knows, they might be 2 of the 3 best teams in the state in any class. So we'll talk more about that game next week. Before we kind of get out of here today, there are a couple things I wanted to talk about, getting away from football for a minute with some other prep items of note. Specifically, La Cueva High School's volleyball team, they went to the Nike Tournament of Champions in Phoenix last weekend. They took a 54-match win streak, which began, I believe, September 11th of 2021. Oh, that was the last time they lost a match. So it had been close to, 25 months since they had lost a match. They went down to this Nike Tournament of Champions. They went 2-1 in pool play, and they lost 3 out of 4 regular matches on the second day of the tournament. And these are all to very strong teams in the western part of the country. So West Mesa's, La Cueva's winning streak is over now at 54. However, their winning streak against New Mexico schools remains intact. They have won 54 in a row against New Mexico. As we speak tonight, they're playing number 2 Las Cruces tonight up here in Albuquerque at La Cueva. So La Cueva, the experienced coach Steve Archibek told me, was invaluable in going down to Arizona and facing teams of this caliber from Arizona, from California, those two states in particular. So even though La Cueva dropped 3 of their 4 official matches, I think Coach Archibek feels like they will be better for it down the road. And now that we're into October, the second and more important month of the season is getting underway. I wanted to mention a little boys soccer news. Last week on Thursday, we had 2 nationally ranked teams from New Mexico, Hobbs and La Cueva, playing in Hobbs. Hobbs was ranked number 19 in the country. La Cueva was ranked number 37. This is in the maxpreps.com poll. Hobbs won in the last few seconds on a goal. They won 2-1. Very rare to see 2 teams with those kind of rankings from New Mexico playing each other this deep into a season. And actually, the rankings were much higher. Actually, Hobbs was 14, La Cueva was 17 on the day before the game, and then the rankings came out with a new list on the day of the game, and Hobbs had slipped to 19, La Cueva to 37. But that's certainly a game we could see again in November in the state tournament. Last thing, real quick, we'll talk about the Metro Cross Country Championships, one of the nicer meets of the year. That will be Saturday at New Santa Community Stadium, the track facility. So we'll have most of the top runners in the area gathering. Charlie Voss from Rio Rancho, who's won 4 of his first 5 meets. He lost to teammate Cody Sullivan last week at the Oregon Mountain Meet. That was his first loss of the year. Cody Sullivan had run second to Charlie in the first 4 events they were in together. And, of course, Gianna Raymer, the 8th grader who goes to Hoover Middle School, but she's been competing for El Dorado, and she's been just a sensation. She's won all 4 of her races that she's been in so far. So the Metro Championships coming up on Saturday. We'll recap those a little bit when we get to next week. In the meantime, that's it. I appreciate you all listening. The Midweek Blitz will be back next week. If you need to reach me for any reason, you want to talk some football, you have something for me, as I said, find me at my email address at the Journal, jyodice@abqjournal.com. My Twitter address is at James D. Yodice. I should say my X address is at James D. Yodice. So if you got something for me, please feel free to give it to me. You can find all of the Journal podcasts at abqjournal.com, the Midweek Blitz, plus Geoff Grammer's weekly podcast as well, as he talks a lot of Lobo basketball. So I appreciate you spending some time with me today. We'll be back next week. I'm sorry about my voice. I'm a little under the weather today. I hope it doesn't sound too awful. Anyway, I hope you all have a great week. Enjoy the football. In the meantime, find our podcast at abqjournal.com. Read, hear, and watch.